Hi everyone, it's Lucy from My Crazy Craft Life, and I'm here today with a design team post for Scrapping for Less using the Lawn Fawn Winter Skies, Chibitronic Lights, and Marvy Snow Pen, which the Chibitronic Lights and the Snow Pen, it was the first time that I used both of them. I'll be honest, I was a little intimidated since this is the first time I was making a card. I wasn't sure how it was going to go. But it actually ended up being really easy. I did learn a couple things as I was kind of going through that I'll point out when I get there, but overall it was really easy. So what I'm doing here is just kind of figuring out what I want the card to look like and what stamps are going to be on there and what I'm going to be doing. So I stamp all of the images. I use Memento Tuxedo Black ink. I like that because I was planning on using Copic markers to do the coloring, so I wanted to use alcohol marker friendly ink to stamp. And that is the Snow Pen, like I said, that I just opened. And it was kind of cool. You use a heat gun with it. I don't know if you've seen it or used it before, and it bubbles up and gets puffy, kind of like puffy paint. It was really cool. So I'm going to make use the Distress Oxides to make a background. I don't really care how perfect this is because I'm going to be putting the black over and blending it all over, so the fact that the colors aren't perfectly blended and there's circles in there because I was heavy-handed when I was doing it, it really doesn't matter because once the black goes over it and you blend it out, you won't really see any of that. The colors I used were Peacock Feathers, Worn Lipstick, Seedless Preserves, Squeezed Lemonade, and then Black Soot to cover over. And I only did a portion of it because what I'm going to end up doing is putting some hills on there, and I just die cut those out for some snowy hills. Now here I'm using the embossing ink from Brutus Monroe, and I embossed 3 of those stars, and that's where I am going to put the lights underneath. So I end up getting my X-Acto knife and I cut out the centers of them because I wanted the holes to be there so that you can see that. And I couldn't find a hole punch that was small enough for that. The 2 that I have just weren't small enough. But it only took a minute, so it wasn't a big deal to cut out the inside of it with the X-Acto knife. Sorry, that was my dogs there apparently barking at air. But I do end up going back and stamping some of the other stars that are in there and heat embossing those as well. I just took a little sage, I can't think of the name, but sage distressed ink to just give it a little bit of color and change of color, I guess you want to say, for the hills, just to give it some definition. And then I do stamp the Santa and the reindeers up on the top with Versamark ink because I want to make sure that that was a nice, clean, clear, crisp stamp up there so you can really see it. I was going to heat emboss it, but then I forgot, so I couldn't, go back and do it, but I was planning on originally heat embossing it. So here I just grabbed my Copics. I wasn't doing a lot of fancy stuff. When I make foxes, I like the orange undertone, so I actually use orange, a light orange, as the base color for all of it, and then I go in there with some browns because I just like how that looks. And then for the raccoon, I just use some of the warm grays to color that one in. The trees, I use some greens, and I used a few different kinds to give it a little bit of dimension, or different greens to give it some dimension when it's on the card. And I made a couple different colors. So there was, like I said, nothing special here. So as far as the Chibitronic lights, I really have to say I was impressed at how easy it was to do and how easy it was to work with. The copper tape is just like kind of like a washi tape. So it was real easy to work with and move and bend and put into positions where I need it. So this is where I'm embossing the rest of the stars, and I I'm using gold embossing powder, and then I also put some silver on those stars, and then I just heat emboss that to kind of give it a bunch of stars in there. I did add some water to the distressed background just to kind of give it that lighted look outside. And then there are the trees. So I put this whole panel together before I started working with the Chibitronics with the lights. I wanted the whole panel together so that I could really kind of figure out exactly where it was going and what I was doing with it. I used, like I said, just some stitched hillsides for the snowbank, and like I said, I was just putting a little bit of that coloring on it just to give it some dimension. I picked my sentiment, and I wanted to make sure to get that on there too. Sometimes I forget to put sentiments on there. And again, I used the Versamark ink to get that on there. And I was trying to make sure that it was straight. That's what I was doing there. And then here I was just, like I said, figuring out exactly where I wanted everything along with the sentiment and how it was all going to end up working out. I do also end up using the Push Here stamp set from Lawn Fawn. It's a great one, especially when you have interactive cards, because it has push here, pull here, all that kind of stuff. So what I did was I just put that down on top of the card, and with just a pencil, I marked where those stars were and where those stickers are going to be going on the card, because this is actually going to be where I create the circuit. So you have to create a little pocket for the battery, and you need to have the negative and the positives all coincide together. So that means you're going to have one circuit that's going to be positive, the other circuit's going to be negative. And when you're putting the lights on, the negatives have to be with the negatives all on the same side, as well as the battery. Now here I was trying to figure out how to get this in here so that when you send it, it's not, going to just be lit. So I wanted to put something there. But here, like I said, you see how easy, like I said, it's just like dealing with washi tape. And you just put it on the outside around where you want the stamps or the stickers to be, the sticker lights to be. And you do want to make sure that it's close enough so the stickers are touching each end of it, meaning the positives are with the positives and the negatives are with the negatives. And there I was just testing it out. So when you bring the circuit over on the positive side, whichever one, circuit is going to go on the positive side of the battery, and then the negative side will go on the negative side of the battery. And you just follow that circuit along, and that's how that works. So I end up using the Push Here stamp set to put something on that little pull so that when they pull it out, and then I also use it on top of the card to say push here so that when they open the card, they can pull that out and then also push it to make the lights go on. Now I wanted to make sure that this all worked, obviously, before I sealed this all down and everything. So there I put my sentiment on, and I'm going to go back to the circuit and keep making sure that that works. Like I said, this was the first time I used it, so I had to move the stickers a little bit here and there just to make sure everything lined up on the card base. But overall, it was pretty simple. So there's the stamp set. Like I said, I am just going to stamp the pull here so they know to pull that out. Originally, you kind of see I leave the little edge on there, and I was going to make it so that they couldn't pull it out, but then I ended up deciding just to let them completely pull it out because you do have to push the card in order for the lights to go on. So I thought that worked out fine. The other thing I would definitely think about doing is not putting the copper tape on directly onto the battery like that. I would put it onto the back of the pouch there instead of putting it directly onto the battery. I mean, it worked fine, but just in the future, that's kind of one of the things I learned. And then I use a bunch of foam tape. You do want to make sure that you put the foam tape behind the battery so that it doesn't slide out the other end of it, and on the kind of the top of it to make sure that it's not going to do that. So there's the pull, and like I said, that I just left so that it completely pulls out. But when you send it, you can stick that in there. And then, like I said, I use the push here right above the sentiment so that they know to push that once they pull that out. And then I'm just finishing up this card with using the stamps and positioning them in where I wanted them to go. And that is almost it, except for the snow pen that I go back and used. And I really thought, like I said, that that was super cool, because when this was the first time I used it, so I wanted to put it around the trees, and I wasn't, like I said, 100% sure how it was going to turn out. I guess I should have tried it before I actually put it onto the card to see what it did, but I didn't. I just went for it, and it, like I said, ended up turning up really cool. I ended up putting way too much on that little piece of paper when I was trying to figure out what I was doing with it. But yeah, once you put that heat tool on there, it all just puffs up. So that's it. That is the card. I think it turned out super cute. I put a little sparkle with my Spectrum Noir sparkle pen on the Santa sleigh and the reindeer. And that is it for today. I want to thank everybody for joining me, and I hope you have a great day. Take care.